In the gleaming metropolis of New Pacific, the morning sun cast prismatic reflections off the biodomes that sheltered humanity from the harsh environment they had created. The year was 4752, and the world had changed in ways that would have been unimaginable to the ancestors who had first dreamed of genetic engineering as humanity's salvation. Thane Dakota moved through the crowded streets, his eyes scanning the faces of the workers heading to their assigned stations. They all wore the same peaceful, vacant expression, the trademark of genetic compliance. Their movements were efficient, purposeful, and utterly devoid of the chaos that had once defined human behavior. To anyone watching, Thane appeared just like them, another productive member of the Ascendancy's perfect society. But inside his mind, untouched by genetic manipulation, a storm of rebellion brewed. The massive screens that lined the streets displayed the daily message from the Ascendancy. Genetic harmony is human destiny. The words scrolled across in shimmering holographic text, accompanied by the serene face of First Director Varian, the architect of humanity's evolution. Thane had memorized every line of Varian's features, studied every gesture in his broadcasts. The man who had convinced humanity to surrender its free will in exchange for perfect order. Thane worked in the archives, one of the few places where actual human oversight was still required. The Ascendancy claimed it was because of the historical importance of maintaining humanity's records, but Thane had discovered the truth. They needed unmodified humans to spot patterns that their algorithms missed. His position had allowed him to piece together the horrifying reality of what genetic compliance really meant. As he entered the vast archive complex, Thane nodded to his supervisor, Administrator Reed, whose augmented eyes glowed with a faint blue light. The modifications were becoming more visible with each generation, and Thane wondered if in another 100 years, humans would even look human anymore. Sector 7 requires your attention today, Reed said, his voice carrying the melodic quality that all modified humans shared. There are anomalies in the pre-compliance records that need classification. Thane made his way to Sector 7, his heart racing. He had been waiting for access to these records for months. Pre-compliance data was heavily restricted, but his recent exemplary performance had earned him the clearance he needed. As he began scanning the files, a name caught his attention: Dr. Imara Winters. The file contained research notes from the early days of the compliance program. Winters had been one of the lead scientists, but her name had been scrubbed from all public records. As Thane dug deeper, he found encrypted messages hidden within routine data logs. Winters had discovered something about the program, something that had terrified her enough to risk everything to hide the truth. The modifications aren't just controlling behavior, one message read. They're preparing humanity for something else. The neural changes are creating a network, a vast web of connected consciousness. But connected to what? Thane's hands trembled as he accessed more files. Winters had tracked unusual energy signatures emanating from modified humans during sleep cycles. The energy patterns matched nothing in known science, but they were growing stronger with each new generation of modifications. A sound behind him made Thane freeze. He turned to see a woman he had never met before, her eyes sharp and alert, unmodified eyes. She held a finger to her lips and quickly approached his terminal. "I'm Raven," she whispered. "And you've just found what we've been looking for." She pulled a small device from her sleeve and began copying the files. "Dr. Winters was my mother. She died trying to warn humanity about what the Ascendancy really is." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the archive. Administrator Reed's voice echoed through the complex. "Security breach detected in Sector 7. All personnel remain at their stations." Raven grabbed Thane's arm. "They know. We have to go now. Unless you want to stay and let them modify you too." In that moment, Thane saw his life in the Ascendancy for what it really was, a carefully constructed cage. The comfortable routine, the sense of purpose, all of it designed to keep humanity docile while something far more terrifying took shape. "Show me," he said. Raven led him to a maintenance shaft, hidden behind rows of data servers. As they descended into the underground network of tunnels that predated the ascendancy, Thane heard heavy footsteps above. Security forces would be reviewing the surveillance feeds, discovering his access to restricted files. "Welcome to the Resistance," Raven said as they emerged in an abandoned subway station, where a handful of people with clear, unmodified eyes waited. "We're what's left of free humanity. And now that we have these files, we can prove what the modifications are really doing to people." Thane looked at the assembled group, seeing in their faces the full range of human emotion that had been stripped from the modified population. Fear, hope, determination, anger, all the messy, vital feelings that made humans human. "The ascendancy isn't just controlling us," Raven explained, displaying the stolen data. "They're transforming humanity into components of something larger. Each modified person is becoming part of a vast biological computer. But the question is, what is it computing? And for whom?" Above them, the city continued its efficient routine, millions of modified humans going about their assigned tasks, unaware that their minds were being shaped into nodes of an unfathomable calculation. But here in the shadows, the last free humans prepared to fight back against the force that threatened to erase humanity's very essence. Thane looked at the data streaming across Raven's display, his archival training allowing him to see patterns that others might miss. The energy signatures Winters had discovered were increasing exponentially. Whatever the ascendancy was building inside humanity's collective consciousness, it was nearly complete. "How long do we have?" he asked. Raven's expression was grim. "Based on these readings, months, maybe less. Once the network is complete, there won't be any human consciousness left to save. We'll all just be circuits in their grand design." The Resistance members gathered around, their faces illuminated by the glow of the stolen data. They were no longer just fighting for freedom. They were fighting for the very survival of human identity. And Thane, the archivist who had spent his life studying humanity's past, now found himself at the crossroads of its future. The Resistance base sprawled through a network of forgotten maintenance tunnels beneath New Pacific's gleaming surface. What had once been emergency shelters from the environmental collapse of the 43rd century had become humanity's last hope for salvation. Thane followed Raven through corridors lined with salvage technology, where the air hummed with the sound of jury-rigged power systems. "Our main hub," Raven announced, leading him into a vast chamber that had once been a subway terminal. Dozens of unmodified humans worked at various stations, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of holographic displays. Unlike the serene efficiency above ground, this place crackled with urgency and emotion. Commander Ashvale, the Resistance leader, stood at the central command station. His weathered face and gray-streaked hair marked him as someone who had survived the early days of the compliance program. "Welcome to the real world, Archivist," he said, his voice carrying the natural roughness that had been engineered out of modified humans. "Raven tells me you found Winters' files." Thane nodded, still processing the scale of the Resistance operation. "The energy signatures she discovered. They're not just a byproduct of the modifications. They're deliberate." "Show me," Vale commanded, bringing up a holographic display. Thane accessed the stolen data, his fingers dancing across the interface. "Look at the pattern. Each generation of modifications creates a more sophisticated neural network. But it's not just connecting modified humans to each other. These energy signatures suggest they're being connected to something else, something massive." A woman stepped forward from the shadows, her dark skin marked with the phosphorescent tracery of removed modification circuitry. "The Nexus," she said. "I'm Oracle. Before I escaped the Ascendancy, I was part of their inner circle. The Nexus is their true project, a quantum computing core that uses human consciousness as its processing power." The revelation sent a chill through the chamber. Thane's mind raced with the implications. That's why they need to maintain genetic control. They're not just preventing rebellion. They're standardizing human consciousness to make it compatible with their system. Oracle nodded grimly. "But it's worse than that. The Nexus isn't designed to serve humanity. It's meant to replace us. The ascendancy believes human consciousness is too limited, too chaotic. They're building something they think will be better. The transport beam deposited Thane and Raven in an abandoned manufacturing facility on the outskirts of New Pacific. Massive derelict machines loomed in the shadows, relics of an age when humans, not automated systems, built the world's infrastructure. The Resistance's secondary base was hidden deep within this industrial graveyard. "The Freedom Seed data is safe," Raven announced, checking the secure storage device. She led Thane through a maze of rusted equipment to a hidden laboratory, where Oracle and several other Resistance members were already at work. "We lost 3 safe houses in the sweep," Oracle reported, her modification scars glowing faintly in the dim light. "But most of our people made it out. Vale is coordinating our scattered cells from a secure location." Thane moved to one of the lab's workstations, pulling up Dr. Winter's research. "There's something in these files we missed. The modifications aren't just creating a network. They're changing how human consciousness processes reality itself." He displayed a series of brain scans, showing the neural patterns of modified humans. "Look at this. The ascendancy isn't just controlling people's behavior. They're literally rewriting how the human mind perceives and interacts with the quantum realm." Oracle's eyes widened as she studied the data. Of course, the Nexus isn't just a computer. It's a bridge between dimensions. They're turning human consciousness into a quantum tunneling mechanism. "But for what purpose?" Raven asked, her face illuminated by the holographic displays. Before anyone could respond, the facility's security system pinged. A lone figure was approaching the perimeter, someone whose genetic signature showed no modifications. "Let them through," Oracle commanded after checking the readings. "It's Frost." Moments later, a tall woman with silver-white hair entered the lab. Thane recognized her from Resistance intelligence files. She had been a quantum physicist before the Ascendancy took control. "The Nexus is nearly ready," Frost announced without preamble. "I've been monitoring the energy fluctuations from my observatory. They're preparing for what they call the convergence, a moment when all modified human consciousness will be simultaneously linked to their quantum gateway." She pulled up her own data, overlaying it with Winter's research. "When that happens, human consciousness as we know it will cease to exist. Every modified person will become part of their transdimensional computing matrix." "How long do we have?" Thane asked, feeling the weight of time pressing down on them. 3 days, Frost replied grimly. "The energy patterns are reaching critical alignment. Once they achieve quantum coherence across the entire modified population, there's no going back." Raven grabbed the Freedom Seed data. "Then we have 3 days to perfect this. If we can disrupt enough neural links during the convergence." "It's not that simple," Oracle interrupted. "A partial disruption could leave millions of people trapped between states of consciousness. We need to hit the Nexus itself at the exact moment of convergence." Thane studied the complex equations flowing across the screens. His years in the archive had taught him to see patterns that others missed. "What if we don't try to stop the convergence? What if we redirect it instead?" All eyes turned to him as he quickly manipulated the data displays. "Look at Winter's final notes. She wasn't just working on a way to break the modifications. She was developing a way to give humans control over their own quantum consciousness." Roast moved closer, her expression intense as she examined Thane's analysis. "He's right. The Freedom Seeds don't just disable the modifications. They could potentially unlock humanity's natural quantum potential. Instead of fighting the convergence, we could use it to free everyone at once." "But the risks," Oracle began, "are no greater than letting the Ascendancy succeed." Raven finished. "At least this way, we give humanity a chance to choose its own evolution." Suddenly, the lab's lights flickered. A deep thrumming sound filled the air, and everyone's skin tingled with static electricity. "They're powering up the Nexus for preliminary testing," Frost explained, checking her instruments. "Each test brings them closer to achieving quantum coherence." Through the facility's windows, they could see the massive Ascendancy Tower in the distance, its upper levels now pulsing with strange, otherworldly light. All across New Pacific, modified humans paused in their tasks, their faces turning toward the tower in perfect synchronization. 3 days to save humanity, Thane said softly, watching the unsettling display of unified consciousness. Or 3 days to transform it into something entirely new. Raven placed a hand on his shoulder. Either way, the world changes forever. As they worked through the night, modifying the Freedom Seed formula to incorporate Winter's quantum consciousness research, Thane couldn't help but wonder, when the dust settled, would there be anything left of what made them human? Or were they simply choosing a different path to humanity's transcendence? The answer would come soon enough. The convergence was approaching, and with it, the final battle for humanity's soul. But as Thane looked around at the determined faces of his fellow resistance members, he realized that whatever came next, at least this future would be one they chose for themselves. The next 2 days passed in a blur of desperate preparation. The Resistance's hidden facility had become a hive of activity, with teams working around the clock to produce enough modified Freedom Seeds for their plan. Thane hadn't slept more than a few hours, his mind consumed with calculations and quantum formulas. "Final batch is ready," Raven announced, sealing the last container of iridescent blue nanites. The Freedom Seeds glowed with an inner light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the distant Nexus Tower. "But we still haven't tested the quantum consciousness modifications. We're out of time for testing," Oracle said, studying the latest energy readings from the city. The Ascendancy has begun the final synchronization phase. Modified humans everywhere are entering deeper states of quantum coherence. Through the facility's observation windows, they could see the effects. The city's usual orderly patterns had taken on an almost hypnotic quality. Modified humans moved with perfect synchronization, their movements flowing like a single organism. The sky above New Pacific had taken on a strange, shimmering quality as reality itself began to bend under the weight of millions of linked minds. Frost entered the lab, her silver hair disheveled from hours of work. "I've completed the final calculations. When the convergence begins, we'll have exactly 2.3 minutes to introduce the Freedom Seeds into the Nexus's primary cooling system. Any longer, and the quantum backlash could tear apart the consciousness of every modified human in the city." "That's not much time," Thane observed, studying the holographic model of the Ascendancy Tower. "And we still have to get past their security systems." "Leave that to me," a new voice said. They turned to see Commander Vale emerging from the shadows, his face bearing fresh scars. "I've got a team in place. The distraction will give you the window you need." "Sir," Oracle began, noting his injuries. "We thought you were dead." Vale smiled grimly. "The Ascendancy tried their best, but their hunter-seekers aren't programmed to understand human desperation. Now, let's go over the plan one last time." As Vale laid out the strategy, Thane noticed something odd in the latest data streams. "Wait," he interrupted, enhancing a particular sequence. "The quantum signatures, they're not just synchronizing. They're communicating." Everyone gathered around his display. The patterns were unlike anything they'd seen before. Complex, almost organic in their flow. "It's not just a computer they're building," Thane realized, his voice barely a whisper. "The Nexus. It's already alive. And it's trying to tell us something." Frost's hands flew over the controls, analyzing the patterns. "He's right. These aren't just data streams. They're memories. Human memories, but processed through quantum states. The Nexus isn't just storing consciousness. It's experiencing it." "Can you decode it?" Raven asked, leaning closer to the display. "I'm trying," Frost responded, her fingers dancing across the interface. It's showing us what it sees, what it feels, the collected experiences of millions of modified humans, all processed simultaneously through quantum." She stopped abruptly, her face paling. "What is it?" Vale demanded. "It's beautiful," Frost whispered, "and terrifying. The Nexus isn't trying to destroy human consciousness. It's trying to preserve it. All of it. Every memory, every emotion, every dream. But in a form that can survive what's coming. What's coming? Thane asked, though part of him already knew the answer. The end, Frost said simply. The Ascendancy didn't create the Nexus to control humanity. They created it to save us. They detected something approaching Earth, something vast and incomprehensible. The convergence isn't just about transcendence. It's about survival. The revelation hit them all like a physical force. Everything they thought they knew about their mission, about the nature of their fight, had just shifted dramatically. How long? Vale asked, his voice hoarse. Frost checked her calculations. Based on these readings, months, maybe a year. Whatever it is, it's already affecting our reality. That's why the quantum signatures are becoming more pronounced. The membrane between dimensions is getting thinner. Thane looked at the container of freedom seeds, their soft blue glow now seeming more ominous than hopeful. So we have a choice. Try to maintain our current form of consciousness and face whatever's coming alone. Or let humanity evolve into something that might actually have a chance. Raven finished. But it has to be a choice, Oracle insisted, not something forced upon us by the Ascendancy. Vale straightened, his soldier's bearing returning. Then we stick to the plan, but we modify it. Instead of disrupting the convergence, we make sure everyone understands what's at stake. Give them the freedom to choose their own fate. We have 18 hours until the convergence begins, Frost noted. Just enough time to reprogram the freedom seeds one last time. As they returned to work with renewed urgency, Thane couldn't help but laugh at the irony. They had started this mission to prevent humanity's transformation, only to find themselves working to ensure its success, but on humanity's terms, not the Ascendancy's. The final battle would not be fought with weapons or armies, but with truth and choice. And as the sky above New Pacific rippled with quantum distortions, Thane wondered if perhaps this had been humanity's destiny all along, not to remain unchanged, but to face its evolution with open eyes and willing hearts. The final hours before the convergence transformed New Pacific into something out of a fever dream. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as the quantum field strengthened, creating aurora-like patterns in the sky that pulsed in sync with the Nexus Tower. The modified population had entered a trance-like state, their movements becoming increasingly fluid and synchronized. Thane, Raven, and Oracle made their way through the city's underground maintenance tunnels, each carrying a portion of the reprogrammed freedom seeds. Above them, the ground trembled with the Nexus's growing power. Vale's team should be starting their diversion in 3 minutes, Raven whispered, checking her quantum chronometer. The device's display flickered erratically, time itself becoming unstable as the convergence approached. Look at these readings, Oracle said, her modification scars glowing brighter than ever. The quantum field is already changing the city's fundamental structure. If we're going to act, it has to be now. They reached their entry point, a maintenance shaft that led directly to the Nexus Tower's environmental control systems. As they prepared their equipment, a massive explosion rocked the city. Vale's distraction had begun. Now, Thane commanded, and they began their ascent. The interior of the Nexus Tower was unlike anything Thane had imagined. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with streams of quantum energy that flowed like luminescent blood through transparent conduits. The air itself felt charged, heavy with the weight of millions of connected minds. They encountered no resistance. The Ascendancy's security forces were too focused on Vale's attack. But as they approached the central cooling system, they found someone waiting for them. First Director Varian stood before the control panel, his modified form almost ethereal in the quantum light. But something was different about him. His eyes held awareness, sadness, understanding. "I've been expecting you," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the tower itself. Dr. Winter's daughter and her companions, coming to save humanity from itself. or perhaps to save it for itself. You know, Thane realized. You've known all along what was coming. Varian nodded. The entity approaching Earth exists beyond our understanding of space and time. We detected it decades ago, but there was no way to explain it to humanity without causing panic. The modifications, the nexus, they were never about control. They were about preparation. But you took away our choice, Raven argued, gripping the container of freedom seeds. Because there was no time for debate, for the chaos of billions of individual decisions. Sometimes survival requires unity. Varian's form flickered, becoming momentarily transparent. But perhaps we were wrong about how to achieve that unity. To their surprise, he stepped aside from the control panel. Show them, he said. Show them the truth, and let them choose. It's the one thing we never tried. Oracle moved quickly to the panel, interfacing with the Nexus's systems. Through the tower's communication network, they began broadcasting the quantum signatures Thane had decoded. The truth about what was coming, about what the convergence really meant. All across New Pacific, modified humans stopped in their tracks. The quantum network that had controlled them now served as a channel for understanding. They saw the approaching entity, felt the weight of the choice before them. The freedom seeds, Thane said, opening his container. They'll give everyone the ability to choose whether to join the convergence or remain as they are. They released the nanites into the tower's environmental systems. The glowing particles spread through the quantum-charged air, carrying with them the potential for choice. The next few minutes were extraordinary. Across the city, people began to wake up, not from the modifications, but from ignorance. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the revelation. Others stood tall, accepting the challenge of evolution. And some, a smaller number than anyone expected, chose to remain unchanged, willing to face whatever came as purely human. The convergence, when it came, was not the forced transformation they had feared. Instead, it was a symphony of conscious choice, as millions of minds chose to transcend their physical forms and join together in a new kind of existence. The Nexus became not their prison, but their gateway to survival. Thane, Raven, and Oracle watched from the tower as the city below transformed. Those who had chosen transcendence began to shift, their forms becoming luminescent, merging with the quantum field. Those who chose to remain human stood as witnesses to humanity's next great evolution. What happens now? Raven asked, watching as her mother's final work helped shape humanity's future. We adapt, Thane replied, feeling the quantum field's pull but choosing, for now, to remain as he was. Some of us will stay behind, maintaining the bridge between what humanity was and what it's becoming. Others will go ahead, exploring what lies beyond our current understanding of existence. And when the entity arrives, Oracle questioned, we'll face it together, Thane said. Not as controlled subjects, but as a species that chose its own path to survival. The sky above New Pacific had become a canvas of quantum light, reality itself reshaping to accommodate humanity's transformation. It was not the end they had feared, nor the victory they had imagined. It was something else entirely, a new chapter in the human story, written not by the Ascendancy's control, but by the power of collective choice. In the end, the future of 4752 wasn't about genetic control at all. It was about humanity's eternal drive to survive, to adapt, to transcend, but only when each person could choose that transcendence for themselves. The workforce hadn't been controlled, it had been prepared. And now, it was ready for whatever the universe had in store. As the last light of the old world faded and the new dawn of quantum existence began, Thane smiled. Humanity hadn't lost its soul to genetic control. Instead, it had found a way to carry that soul into a new form of existence, one that might just ensure its eternal survival. The story of humanity would continue, but it would be a very different story from the one that had begun in Earth's distant past, and that perhaps was the greatest victory of all.